2. Are we live? We are live. So for those who are unfamiliar with our format, we go live a little early so that we can give everybody a chance to get here, give everybody a chance to share. Why
you run everything like church, man? Okay, say hi to your neighbor, all right, church, and let the church say, man, yeah, shake a hand, make a friend if you can. Hey, man, you funny, man.
I don't know what you had for breakfast this morning, Michael, but I like it. You're already going today.
I can't call it, man. Sometimes I'm invigorated, sometimes I'm disgusted.
Well, either way, it makes for good content. So
sometimes both. Either way, I'm happy that we can speak to this gentleman today.
Yeah, this is going to be a good show.
He's going to shed light on a lot of things, and I already feel that we got a similar viewpoint of the world in some ways, at least. So I'm always excited to iron sharpens iron. Come on now.
There you go.
Yeah.
So do I need to share this thing over on my?
If you can share it to your smaller page, that would pick up anybody that's not friends on your big page. I know that small page is private, so it's a comparatively small group, but it certainly doesn't hurt.
Did you send me the?
I did, but I will do it again. Hold on one second.
I haven't gone even to look yet, man. But
Well, I did it a while ago, so let me do it again. And
now, how long YouTube been going at it?
Like Michael and myself?
Mm-hmm.
3-4 years now.
3-4 years.
I'm talking about the show or talking about his friends?
Everything. The show and his friends.
Well, I first met Michael back in like 2006, but he doesn't remember that, and he wouldn't. We became. All I remember, Michael, is we were already close enough to be like really talking when Prince passed, because I remember that you talked to me a lot, like the day after, and I was like, okay, because I didn't know, I knew you, but not well enough to know whether to should I leave him alone or should I reach out to him? And you reached out to me and felt like talking, and I was like, okay, so, but I know by 2016 we were at least close enough for that type of relationship. So what's that? 4 years then? That's what you said. I said a whole bunch of extra words to say the same thing that Michael said.
So the honeymoon stage is over.
Yeah.
There you go.
He's already, talking smack about me behind my back.
And in front of his back.
Actually, he talks smack to my face, and then he says nice things about me behind my back.
That's probably a lot more accurate.
I know you.
Councilman, do you need the link to share the video to any of your social media platforms, or do you?
Yeah, I'm on it. I'm copying and trying to do the little. So
okay.
Oddly enough, well, we could talk about that offline because.
Okay.
So we had so Dan and I
bonded. Are you in Facebook jail again?
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. So I'm trying to maneuver around that as we speak.
Oh. Speaking of which, I forgot to put the little comment up there, so let me do that now. Hold on one second. Keep doing what you're doing.
Okay.
We will start the official discussion around 7:05.
This looks like I got it, man. At least
you did. Yeah, you got it, Michael. I saw a while ago you got it.
And we got it on the other page already, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
So the only other thing is if you wanted to share it to like the Soul Asylum group, the Running Backwards Through Time or whatever it is.
I'll let them decide whether they want to come mess with us.
Any Soul Asylum fans that want to, first of all, anybody who's watching now or later, whenever you shares are always appreciated. We want to reach as many people as we can. We want to indoctrinate as many new people we can into our, what is it? It's not a religion. It's not a cult. I don't know what it is. It's the Dan and Michael show.
Yeah, is it a social group?
I don't know. It's a little more.
It's a think tank.
Yeah.
Kinda.
So.
It's really just, like-minded individuals having a discourse about what's wrong.
So we'll give the councilman time to make sure we're on his social media, because one of the beauties of this show. What's up, Charles? Charles is in the comments. the beauties of the show is that we've connected to so many new people because of when we meet somebody like-minded, we have them on the show. Then sometimes they become part of our circles, and their people become part of our circles. And a perfect example is Michael and I met Maya because of Tiffany's episode, and Tiffany and Maya were connected. And then we met tonight's guest, the councilman, through Maya, and because of Maya's episode and because of how all the things that she's helped us with behind the scenes. Yeah. So maybe we'll get some. Maybe a future guest will come from the councilman's Christopher's circles.
Well, if he's anything like me, he's going to be fastidious about who he puts in that position, and he's going to have to assess probably after he's interacted with us.
Who's worthy?
Yeah.
Well, what they're not going to do is come on the show and embarrass me, and that's what they're not going to do.
Well, they can. See, he's even more like me than I. Yeah.
See, I thought you were going to share with your.
Right.
Go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
No, he I feel like I'm speaking almost to myself.
Okay.
I'd be more concerned about who's coming on, representing me, coming on with my name in their mouth. Like how are they going to act? So,
Jesse, if you're watching, you see I got your tie on. I don't know if she's here yet.
Who? Jessica.
Yeah, I wanted her to see that I had. I'm not going to keep it on the whole episode because I'm blocking the Maya shirt.
Well, Jessica is
she'll be around.
Yeah, she's a magical being. She'll show up. She's probably out collecting rocks and clovers and.
So who she would. Do you know who's another fan of the show that I should connect with Jessica? And they're both from California. Is Allison Jason. I don't know if you've seen her in the comments. She's another one who's like kind of lives life as like a My Little Pony or a unicorn or something like that. Like she collects rocks and she's got a very kind of. Oh, there's Jesse.
Yep.
See the tie? Uh-huh. So at some point I'm gonna take it off so everybody can see Maya's shirt.
You funny, man. You have a few like Negro adjacent tendencies.
Negro adjacent.
Like, I only showed the tie. All I could think about was like John Witherspoon in Boomerang. Showing off the you got the mushroom belt.
So Councilman, are you go ahead.
You're a labor whore. So this is their version of being a labor whore.
So are you ready? Did you share it everywhere you needed to share to?
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Let's take the comments down. Let's take this down, and let's go like this.
Sure.
So we are here. We are starting. Welcome to Music Politics, episode 12.
Look at us looking like ZZ Top.
See, I love it when I was gonna say I love it when Michael is in these moods, but really any Michael mood is a good mood. It's just you never know what you're gonna get.
The many moods.
So I'll introduce my co-host first, and then we can see who's gonna introduce our guest. So every week I give him a whole bunch of compliments, and he hates compliments. So maybe I should try insulting him for the promo this week. I can't. There's too many good things to say. Many modern drum publications have ranked him the best drummer in the world. And I was privileged enough to become his friend and find out that he has a lot to offer besides just music, which is why I'm so grateful that I get to do this show with him. Ladies and gentlemen, where is he at? This way. Michael Bland.
You can try to point the right way.
I never get it right. Not one single episode. I never get it right.
That's all right.
There.
He hails from Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm. That I do.
Hanger of ceiling fans.
Also true.
Player of Hammond organs.
Yes, also true.
Not scared of black folks.
You gonna say that every week, huh?
That's what you need to know. What you're doing here. Not afraid. knows his lane and stays in it. Not afraid. A gentleman and a scholar, anointed, chosen, here for the fight. He's all right. Dan Spiffy Neuman.
You want to introduce our guest, Michael, or should I?
You should. Go ahead, man.
Okay. So we are privileged to have on a councilman from East Orange, New Jersey, who has been very active in not only in local politics, but also in civil rights. And he's also been a teacher. He's also been a law enforcement officer. And he's also been involved in the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm very interested at some point to talk about how he reconciles those two. I'll let him tell him that's the gist of what I know. I'm looking forward to learning more about him. So I'll let him tell us more about himself. But ladies and gentlemen, I think I have to point this way again.
That's him.
Councilman Christopher Awe. Am I saying your last name right?
Yes, you are. Thank you. Thank you.
That's
Pleasure,
him.
gentlemen.
Let me start off by asking you, where your people from?
So I am originally born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, by way of Nigeria. So I'm first generation Nigerian. Mom and dad, are from the homeland, and I actually, consider myself Nigerian before I consider myself American. So I'm still, so I guess the true definition of African American, right? So
that's why I was asking. I just pick up vibrations and little things off the air, man.
Yeah.
You identify yourself like by nationality first. Well, by that nationality first.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but that was the leading culture that I was raised in, so, in the household and so on and so forth. And that's usually our experience as a first generation, the culture in the house is what you identify with, first and foremost. And, just because we're here doesn't mean you're from here. And my parents made that very clear. Mm-hmm. And so all of the culture and the values instilled that's within, our Nigerian culture is first and paramount to us. So, yeah.
I think that has contributed to the fact that your path is dissimilar to a lot of us here, because you were not indoctrinated. Nobody feed you the Kool-Aid. You knew who you were.
Yeah.
You knew your identity as a human on this first.
Right.
Before you had to confront all the.
It's an interesting because we, and you talk to a lot of us first generation, that came up in this country. It's interesting what happened, and we'll tell stories of when, we were in grade school and you was called the African booty scratcher, right? Mm-hmm. And you were, perplexed, and you came home like, and so this wanting to belong to the culture here, but still want to honor, your home culture, and then that switch that happened, and so we went through that period of like, now it's cool, to be African, but then now that reconciliation and trying to, explain, and then even among us, that conflict that we have, you Native Africans look at us African Americans differently, and it's like, well, no, not at all. Actually, it's with open arms that we embrace y'all and bring y'all in, but do understand what our culture and our values are and why it makes us who we are and how that may help as a whole. So it's an interesting thing, and especially with everything that's happening now, that part of the dynamic being factored in, and it's a time to be alive. What can I say?
Yeah, man. I know I'm feeling all that you're saying. So. Because I also have always got the impression that if I ever went to Africa, they point back to where I came from and said, "Get to stepping."
No.
So you're saying it's a matter of honoring the culture and being educated about the environment that you're about to be immersed in.
Without a doubt. And I think that goes with any aspect of life, Just take what you're taking on seriously, but definitely with open arms. And look what we have now, this call for everyone to come back home. And this is quite, this is a good time with what's happening in this country now. This is quite the time to be able to go back home. But that, like I said, has always been open arms. And, the aspect of all our cultures, is embracing, it's inclusive, it's building on, right? It's the dynamic of family, and everyone is your family. It's it takes a village to raise a child. It's all of that. All the different aspects of our culture is fully inclusive, and so no one should ever feel that they're excluded, and they should. We do whatever we can to let you feel that warmth and open up your arms, as long as it's genuine and you're really taking on the culture for real.
Yeah, the few people I know who have been to Africa, they come back and say it's a paradise. Mm-hmm. And I think about as a kid, you see all these commercials, save the children, and it's little African babies with flies buzzing around in their ears and in their nose, and they paint this impoverished picture of Africa like, ooh, that ain't someplace I want to go. But anybody I know who has set foot on the motherland says it's a paradise. They almost don't want to come back.
Well, yeah, and the energy, the vibe outside of that. I got cousins that are hearing music and seeing cars and seeing clothes that we didn't even get here yet. And it's like, oh, you're late, and I'm like, what do you mean?
Oh wow,
yeah. So on any side of the fence in terms of being back home, it is paradise. It is paradise, and I think I, for one, am blessed in that I have a direct link. I don't take that for granted, right? Yeah. But I think everyone with the understanding that you do have a link there should really seek that link out and really embrace that and make that connection. And once that connection is made, it really is eye-opening. It's empowering, and you definitely look at the world from a different perspective. And I think all of us could probably use that more worldly perspective.
I admire you, man, because you know who you are. You don't go through any sort of like I'm being presumptuous in saying it, but at least what it comes off to me is that you have you've never experienced, and you said you've experienced somewhat of an identity crisis when on the school ground, but I think everybody does to a certain degree. Kids are just mean and pick on you being different. Mm-hmm. But I feel like as long as you've been conscious, you know who you are, and that's a big part of what's missing for the rest of us. We don't really know where we came from, and we're lost in North America trying to work it out.
Well, I tell you this much: we have one connecting factor, right? That's pretty much why we're here now. And then one connecting factor is, at least in this world, in this country, me having a direct link home versus you, Michael. When we walk down the street, they look at both of us the same way. So, that's the one connecting factor too. And I think that should be more of the invite for, our brethren here as native to this country to seek that link. And that's the connecting factor that makes me and my peers that do have the direct link really open to, help you guys find a link and embrace you and welcome you guys. Because here, they see you, they see me, regardless of what my last name is, how many syllables my middle name is, how many, passports I have or whatever. I'm still a nigga.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, right. What you, what I lack in skin tone, I make up for in size. They fear me, right. So and this is really interesting that we're having this discussion, and you've been a police officer. Are you still, or were you?
So no, so I worked with the sheriff's office of Essex County for 6 or 7 years while I was teaching as well. So I got elected, kind of left there, right? So yeah.
Was it something you were after? Something you wanted to?
More like fell into. Yeah, more like I fell into. So I made a decision. I made a conscious decision early on that I was going to serve the community and serve the public. I made that decision pretty early. I went to college, went to University of Maryland Eastern Shore, came out and thought I had everything planned out. It's funny, we're talking about culture. Thought I had everything thought out. And so like my dad and, wanted some of the key people and men in my family were in finance. So I thought I was going right into finance and Wall Street. Market change wasn't really a thing. I was already in the hood, an old hood, mentoring and coaching and so on and so forth. And it was a good teacher, a former teacher of mine that said, you should try teaching. And so I did, and subbed for a year, and it became my life, and took on the lifestyle. So like I said, I kind of decided early, like, okay, corporate and private sector is not my thing. I'm going to give back to my community. And all along that lines, I was always working within the community, organizing, got politically involved in terms of with the local parties here in East Orange and in Essex County here, and was doing that work. Had the opportunity to do some work with the CBC through a training program. Was able to go around and help some friends out on their campaigns and just work campaigns for people I believed in. Meanwhile, still taking care of home, and I became a district leader. And from there, that was my, ascension up into office. But like I said, I made that decision early on that I was, whatever I do was going to be within my community and helping my community out.
You go serve the community. That's noble.
Yeah. Well, and shout out to my parents. That was, that really came from them. My parents, obviously culture wise, and then heavy in the church. But in terms of my role now, it really started from like my dad. And I recall my dad, putting up these fights with, like local officials and so on and so forth. And it was a pretty simple ask, which is, hey, I'm paying taxes, right? So myself and my kids need to be able to utilize these services, and the services need to be the best that they can. And so I shouldn't have to send my kid to a private school, not with the taxes I'm paying. And so it needs to be able to be in the best school you guys offer in the city. I don't care where we live. If that's the best school across town, he needs to be able to get there, and I'm not paying for it. So, and that's kind of where it started, and just that connection of governmental impact and governmental influence in your everyday life. And that's kind of where it started. And so, I dedicated myself to doing what I can to help everyone else along.
Yeah. Yes, I got that completely. Dan, I don't mean to hog the conversation.
Oh, I love it. I love it when I don't have to say anything.
The brother's trying to speak and whatnot.
Oh, I love it when I don't have to say anything. And so I'm happy to just sit back here and listen when you feel like talking, Michael. So don't, I did want to just tell Rashida that since she wasn't here earlier, the tie was a gift from Jesse. So, and then we'll get right. The only thing I wanted to ask, and sorry for going off on a tangent, but Michael, Prince never played in Africa?
Not when I was in the band. I mean, the closest we got was probably Cadiz in Spain, which is right across the water from Morocco.
That's a little bit surprising, given how often that they bring. Maybe they. Well, I guess I don't know enough about the infrastructure. I've had a few opportunities to go on tour in Africa that I wasn't able to take. I still hope I get another opportunity because I would love to. But I'm a little bit surprised that Prince never played there and you never had the opportunity to go with him.
I'll say this though. So, the one connection for me. So Prince, obviously, guitar skills out of this world, ranked as one of the best guitar players there is. And so our native music for Yoruba people in Nigeria is juju music, right? Very heavy guitar, very heavy riffs, and so on and so forth. And so there was always a connection between, like my dad appreciated Prince because he's Prince, of course. But when Prince got on that guitar and some of those riffs that he would have, I mean, just magical, right? And it was really a link to like our juju music. And for Yoruba music in Nigeria, right? And it's kind of funny because, all right, so it was Prince and it was Michael, that debate always there. But Prince, a lot of native Africans will get the nod because of the way he played his guitar and, the funk with it and all that stuff. So just, sidebar.
Not to jump topics completely, Could you see the comments at all, Christopher? You go to the right-hand side, click on comments. Cheryl posted a rather long comment, and before I put it on the screen, I just wanted to ask you if you wanted to address it now or, not.
Well, she's saying it doesn't need to be.
No, it doesn't. No, but maybe he wants to. I wanted to give him the opportunity if he can see the comments.
Yeah. If Cheryl really didn't want us to talk about it, then she wouldn't have even posed it. So let's see. Let's get into it.
Okay. My response to Cheryl would be this. I think obviously everyone is not as evolved as they should be in any society, right? I don't think it reflects on the whole society though. And the bottom line of it is that there's sides of all colors of people in every family and every society, so on and so forth, and so unfortunately there's some people that's just not as evolved, and we don't make excuses for them. And as she said, she checked them, and as she should check them, you know what I mean? And if she don't check them, life will check them, Well, I wouldn't. I would caution everyone just not to, label a whole culture, a whole society, a whole continent just based off of, one person or one unfortunate, exchange with a person. That's,
Yes, that's just.
I think it's probably hard to look at things that way when you look at the United States and we say, oh, we shouldn't label the United States by its bigots, but in a lot of ways the United States kind of is labeled by its bigots.
Well, that's because they come in high volume.
And they hold high places of power and they hold great influence. And
nobody seems to have a real problem with that.
I think, unfortunately, and this is why conversations like this need to be had. Shameless plug and shout out to Maya. Necessary Conversations. I love the name of her series, right? And there needs to be more conversations that need to be had because there's a lot of people like me and a lot of my colleagues and peers, and we hear about the noise all the time, and it's what noise you let come through. And opportunities like this and opportunities that's around there. More and more of what else the other side. We just had this conversation, Mike, about the other perspective, the other side, and there's not too many opportunities to hear the other perspective and the other side. And unfortunately, we let the loudest voice, win, and that's wrong.
Yeah. Also, people don't want to do the real work that it takes to transform this country. They think it's you can't. And let me make it clear. I am not telling anybody to not vote. Let's get that out of the way first. But you have to look realistically at the process. I'm saying whatever you're going to get into begs real examination. If you're a smart person, you want to know. But I don't know why we particularly turn out in such small numbers. But as I thought about it more, it's the things that frustrate me. Clear it up first, Michael. Thank you, Rashida. I'll cut right to it. I'm trying to figure out my feelings. Mm-hmm. My feeling is that how can you what progress can you make with your oppressor's tools? What can you really do?
Well, so it's interesting. I had this conversation just a couple of days ago. I think it might have been with Maya. So, there's different approaches. I think wherever place where you place yourself on the spectrum, that's up to you. But the whole, whether you trying to change the game, right? Or you're trying to benefit yourself within the game. There's some of us.
Jariah, Boone, whoever that is. We'll get there.
So whether you're trying to change the game and change the rules of the game and, or even eliminate the game, or whether you're just trying to benefit yourself within the game, you have to be in the game. And that's what we don't tend to understand, right? Whether you want to be a revolutionary and you want to be a change maker, or, you want to take care of self and, learn the rules of it so that you could apply it, so that you could benefit from it. There's a lot of us that's doing that too. And that's what they do so well, right? I hate to say that, but that's what they do so well. They learn the rules and they sit there and go, well, I don't like these rules, but how can I apply these rules to help me? Sure. And then they get to the point where now they become influential enough to change the rules to even help themselves even more. And we're not even in the game. So what are we complaining about? And then you complain about, well, they won't let you in the game. You're not, just like any sport, like you try out and you may play freshman and then you may play JV and then you come to varsity, or so on and so on. But you have to get in the game. And for us and for myself, and I know us in here in East Orange and locally in Essex County and in Jersey in general, that's all we're just shouting. Get in the game, get in the game.
I hear you. Mm-hmm. All right. I don't know how to pronounce her name. You can put that back up. You can't talk about people of color turning out in small numbers without discussing voter suppression.
Real quick, I just actually messaged her to ask her how to pronounce her name because she's going to be our guest in a few weeks. She's a Biden-Harris campaign staffer, and she goes to my church. She's amazing, but it's actually, her name is short for Nigeria, which I thought was kind of like cool. Yeah. So it's Jiria.
Hi, Jiria.
And
I've been watching your posts and your comments and things. You're brilliant. It'll be our pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for honoring us with your attendance when that comes. But
Michael just feels bad because he pronounced your name wrong a few minutes ago.
Well, I got it now, Jiria. So. That's over. Let the past go, damn Spiffy Neuman.
So continue. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying. It hit me one day, and I put it on my Facebook page that voting must actually work. Otherwise, they wouldn't work so hard to keep us from doing it. So it must have an effect somewhere.
I couldn't have said it better. I think that's what we're going to be using. That's going to be my spiel. Like, as simple as that. That was part of the conversation I had a few days ago too, in that all these systems that are so complicated and convoluted to understand and that we shy away from because we don't want to do that reading or deal with that. There's a reason behind that. And there must be real power there. So if they're working so hard to suppress the vote, there's a reason behind that.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know if either of you saw, it was in the news cycle today. Apparently, the states that have the most mail sorting machines removed are Wisconsin, Florida, and one other state. I want to say Ohio, but they're always the states that are like last to be called during a presidential election.
All the battleground states, Florida, like we need another. Do we need another like fiasco in Florida? Like, seriously?
No.
But there you go. There you go.
Yeah. Oh, somebody's asking about felons. Oh, saying felons can't vote is an issue too. Yeah,
there's been progress there, and those break down into state, obviously, federal, but the state issue. But there's been progress there. There's definitely been progress. I know there's progress that's being made here in Jersey, along those lines, and there's legislature there to make those moves. So that's something that you just got to keep on, beating the horn on. So yeah.
Real quick tangent. As an elected official, I know we asked Sade this on her episode, but again, same question for you. What can we do to make sure our votes are counted in this up and coming election? What can we do to try to prevent voter suppression from happening to us?
Well, I think for the most part, varying from state to state. For example, I can speak for Jersey. Jersey has been announced as going to be a mail-in election. We had a test run just last month with our primary and was able to work out whatever kinks we had there. But you will have the opportunity to vote here in Jersey. You will have the opportunity to vote in person at select locations. Obviously, because of COVID, has been largely reduced, but every person who's registered to vote will get a ballot in the mail. So that's first. So if you did not get your ballot, the first thing you need to do is call up your county office, your county clerk's office, and say, hey, I have not received a ballot. They'll be able to check and say, well, it was mailed out on this date. You should have received it by then. And if you still haven't, if you didn't receive it, then you'll be able to request a second ballot to be mailed to your home, and they know not to look out. But, I think Michelle, spoke on it yesterday so eloquently during her speech. Our first lady, call up, check. You didn't get your ballot. Make sure where is that. Once you get it, don't wait. Don't let it sit on the coffee table. Fill that bad boy out. Put it in the mail. There's different avenues that each state has. I know for us here in Jersey and here in the county of Essex, we have different avenues. You can drop it off at your clerk's office. You can put it in the mail, which a lot of people, right now feeling leery about. We also establish drop-in boxes, like that's from the Board of Elections, right? That's separate from the post office. That's in different locations throughout the different cities and throughout the county, and you're able to put your ballot in those drop boxes as well. So you have those different avenues. And if you mail it in, you can call your clerk's office and you can call your Board of Elections and say, hey, did you receive my ballot? You feel free to do that. Mm-hmm. But as Michelle said, vote early and stay on it, and talk to your neighbors too, right? I think we forget about the power of the word of mouth, and just, I don't want to say guilt tripping your neighbors, but like, hey, did you vote?
Hey, listen, Bono made a second career out of just making people feel like you're a piece of crap if you are a millionaire and you don't give. Bono, right. Who knew?
I mean, yeah,
if you believe in it, get out there. Yes.
And well, this is real talk, right? So let's have real talk. And I think I see it in the comments too. I mean, we can wait in line for Jordans. We can wait in line for Popeye chicken sandwiches.
Preach now.
Right? We can wait in line for, concert tickets and so on and so forth, right? So really, especially if it's a mail-in election, for you to fill out a ballot and put it in a box, or even to drop it off, there's really no excuse, to be completely honest with you. I see questions about, can they be tracked? Like every ballot, yes, every ballot can and will be tracked, right? They will have barcodes on it. And that's why you're able to literally call up your clerk's office and say, I haven't received my ballot. And they should be able to say and tell you when it was mailed. And when you mail it off, you can call them up and say, hey, I mailed it in. Have you received it? And then they should be able to sit there and say, yes, we received it on this date, or no, we have not. So, we talked about noise earlier. They want you to believe that fraud is likely to happen with, vote by mail. There's been how many there's states like I think Hawaii has been doing vote by mail for 10 plus years now, right? It makes sense, right? You're in paradise. You don't want to, you don't want to walk over to, to a vote machine when you're in paradise. So you want to fill it out, put it in the mail. I don't think they have any, these large cases of fraud, or any other state or any other countries for that matter. So they want you to believe that fraud is likely.
Well, the fact that they're involved is my evidence that fraud is likely.
I think Michael's saying the same thing I was going to say, which is I'm not worried about.
I'm worried about
voters. I'm not worried about voters trying to commit fraud. I think the percentage of that is something like 0.01%. But what I'm worried about is Trump being successful in sabotaging the post office, and therefore a lot of the ballots not arriving on time. Is that not a valid concern?
Well, definitely. So I think education is key here, of course. And I think he did what he can, right? Which is, all right, I'm gonna cut this money, right? But that's where your Congress come into play. And that's why elections are so important up and down the ballot, right? And so having those relationships and those rapports with your local officials, who has those relationships and rapports with their Congress people, right? So Congress is who really control the post office, right? Congress is the ones that actually approve the monies that they need to, to fund the post office and so on and so forth. And so, and all the way down to locally speaking, your congressman is the one that approves the appointment for your local postmaster, for example. And so if you're having issues with, your mail not being on time, well, you can call your congressional office and say, hey, this postmaster here in East Orange, New Jersey suck. And your congressperson can call up that local postmaster and say, hey, what's going on with the mail in East Orange or whatever town you in? Yeah. And so that's how that works. And so people just need to be educated on that and put the pressure on your congressional representatives to do what they're supposed to do. Now, I know it's a little bit harder in certain areas of the country where, they may not really be representing the right people and really advocate for them. But I tell you this much, the one thing any elected official hate is phone calls and emails and letters en masse about how you're doing a sucky job. All right. And so you need to stay on them, that the representatives that you have, not only at your city hall, not only in your state house, but also in DC, are doing what they're supposed to do. And
vote them out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Completely tangential, but made me think of it. How close is McConnell's race this time around? Is there a chance we get rid of him, or? Okay, your face says leave that alone. So,
he had a scare he had a little scare last time, but he got through that. So that's why for us, I hate to say for us, and I don't know if we are like being nonpartisan on this show, but I think that.
I mean, you know what? We don't just freedom of speech here.
Yeah, I mean, the goal should be to get as many people in the right places where he becomes a non-factor, right? So if he's not the Senate Majority Leader, then he's a non-factor. So let's change let's get these seats in our towns where they should be. So he's not the Majority Leader that he may, if he's the Minority Leader, who cares? But if he's not the Majority Leader, then he's a non-factor at this point. So
yeah, I got you. Here's the thing to me that I've been thinking about. What a master stroke to try to dismantle the U.S. Postal Service. I have these arguments with my benevolent white friends often, who like, oh, so you're trying to tell me that white Europeans invented this, structure that was, this masterminded structure to suppress all other people of color. And I'm like, since when does genius and benevolence go necessarily together? You don't believe that people are out there who are as smart as anyone can be, who want to see doom and evil reign? I mean, come on, man. I was talking to Kim, my wife, about this last night. It's like the fact that there are people, smart people, dedicated to the dismantling of this country for those who are less fortunate, the older, poor, frontline workers. Somebody has an agenda moving forward.
Yeah, but Mike, we can, to be honest with you, like, you're absolutely right. But even like, and I think that's one of the reasons why, I get so passionate and get involved. Like, as we sit there and think about it, it's like, wow. But the time that we spend crying over that, and it's time, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So we need to make moves and fight that. I'm seeing in the comment section about the Postmaster General. And I have to give it one thing, like Trump and the people around him, like you just said, there's some diabolical genius there, and so much where they find the technique, like they're really masters at finding the technicality. So like the General Postmaster is not actually the General Postmaster; he's the acting General Postmaster. And what this guy has done is put everybody in acting capacities where right, and you got McConnell there who refuses to bring them up so they can get, their appointments as they should from Congress, because he knows it won't happen. Right. And that's why he's having the purview to do all this stuff. So no one's really in the role that they're not really in the role. They're acting.
Yes.
And you don't have to answer the Congress at all. They answer to him. Is that diabolical genius in that? You gotta,
Yes, it's genius. That's what I keep trying to tell people. I mean, but not only that, they're proving more now than ever that cruelty is the point. How are you just going to hold up the way for somebody to get their insulin, their heart meds? I didn't realize until this happened how instrumental the U.S. Postal Service is to those who are just scrimping and saving and trying to get along. And like they really are trying to punish the lower class and the fragile people of this country.
If we could, and if logic will prevail in this country, which we know don't, but that's part of the messaging from us, right? Which is that's how diabolical these people are, that they willing, because remember, a lot of these people is his base, right? Those farmers and those people in the Midwest, that's his base, right? And those are the people who are now not getting checks, right? Those are the people who are not getting their insulin, getting their medication. Those are the people who, even if they can, they're sending their checks in the mail for bills, and now the bills, the bill collectors are not getting. They're getting phone calls. Those are these people, and they're so diabolical that they're willing to expend, at the at the expense of anybody, just for their agenda to be pushed, including their own. Now, you will hope that they will hear that, right? You will hope that understanding that small business is what is the cornerstone and the foundation of this country, right? Yeah. And now you guys are in danger, right? Black or white. Mm-hmm. You would think they would hear that, but for whatever reason, that noise doesn't come through. So
they got us busy arguing over these black and white things. Meanwhile, they just moving it right along.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Did you want to answer Patty's question? I don't know if you have it.
Patty says, does acting capacity give them more protections? Technically speaking, not more protections, but because they're acting, they're not subject to congressional approval. That's the only reason. And because they should, anytime they're acting, is understood that it's temporary, that you'll be there. The temporary period is the time period that you're called up to Congress to, come before them for congressional approval. That calendar is controlled by Senator McConnell. So Senator McConnell just doesn't call him up for congressional approval, and that's how they're able to stay in acting capacity, and that's why he's in cahoots with Trump and the diabolical plan that they have.
I'm just gonna put Maya's comment back up because I feel like that needs I might make a post just from that comment tomorrow or something like that. That's really gives something weighty to think about right there, and in terms of human nature. So,
and there you have it: systemic oppression.
Sheesh. Yeah,
they're running from it to give it to somebody else.
I mean, that's always human nature. Is you always look people that feel like they're oppressed are always looking for someone to oppress. And it's not the same thing as actually being oppressed, but people that feel, talk to a lot of these white people that feel like the country is ending because there's finally equality happening. They're looking for someone else to be the scapegoats and to have the blame,
Yeah. And black people are deciding it's time out for that. We're done.
Right.
We're done with that. And that's what I was saying earlier today. I don't know if you saw my post, but I had also said, a lot of these people are up in arms because the country is changing. But these are also people who thought everything was cool before all this broke out. So I was like, I get it, but you can't. What were the words I tried to use? You can't. Why would you stand in the way of a people that are mobilizing and transforming their reality just because you don't like where they're trying to go? We're headed somewhere. People, I think the thing. It's kind of like some of your, haters or frenemies or, fake friends. Like they don't want to see you accomplish what they're too afraid to step out and fight for. More often than not.
Yeah.
I don't mean to depress you, Councilman.
I'm trying to keep my tears away. Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a wise book once said, "Faith without works is dead."
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that book.
You know? And that's why I say, like, I get it. Vote because that's the only option you got, or the only one that has been offered to you. But a lot of things that are changing now have to do with context and who's alive now and who's seeing what and who's okay with this and who's not okay with that. I mean, what was the last major, Rodney King maybe? Last major event where a black man was assaulted. Well, he was assaulted. George Floyd's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Where white people went, oh wow, I guess they really were telling the truth about that. They're beating them down there. Like, something about this particular time. Somebody said to me earlier today, and I think I misunderstood where he was coming from in general, but we got together. We all right, we brethren. He prayed for me, and I said, amen, thank you for that. And it's funny because for a minute I was like, I wonder if this white dude's trying to grandstand on me. And then it went through my spirit that whatever the enemy sends for you as poison, God can turn into medicine. So I went with it. I said, amen, brother. Thank you for that. And I let it go. But he was suggesting that violence is not the answer. And I'm like, man, what was the Civil War? Violence is I'm not saying that what I'm saying is that violence sometimes maybe it's not the answer, but it is the response.
I think it's important to identify, right, just that what they say, riots is the cries of oppressed people and so on and so forth. I do also think though, and I would be irresponsible as a public official.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get you any.
But I'm proud. I'm proud of East Orange, New Jersey. I'm proud of Newark, New Jersey. I'm proud of Essex County, New Jersey, and the time that we have it. And just for some context, right? For some time, New Jersey was ground zero for like police, interactions with Black people, right? And going down the New Jersey Turnpike, you did this every single time, right? And it was like that for some time in the 90s and early 2000s. With that said, and with that context, so we knew firsthand that experience. And there's certain towns in Jersey that was like that. But in this time that we're at right now, and with us, just so angry and protesting and crying out and making noise, we've learned the lessons from the riots of the 60s that happened in Newark, right? Where in that you can still drive through Newark and still see remnants of that riot and, depleted structures and burned down structures and so on and so forth. And so that lesson was, we learned some loud and clear. And while we know we need to make noise and get the attention while we can and really capture this time, we've done it in a way where we're policing ourselves, right? And so, there was interactions where there was some knuckleheads that wanted to, F some ish up, right? And just break some stuff. And it was us. They were like, whoa, what are you doing? And in fact, you're not from here. You're not from here. Yo, get them out of here.
Because in Minneapolis.
Right, exactly. And that's what it is. And so I think there is, a fine line between making a noise and really shaking up the system.
Yes.
But doing it in a responsible way. And I think we can find that balance. I really do. I really do. And if you stay on the gas and you stay on the pedal, listen, Wednesday, shameless plug, we have our summer work program here in East Orange, New Jersey, and we partner up with Mount Vernon, New York. And these are some bright, really talented kids. And tomorrow they took it upon themselves. They chose an agenda on their own, and they chose a case where we had in Jersey right before, 2 weeks before George Floyd. A lot of people didn't know this. 2 weeks before George Floyd, there was an unfortunate young, black man that died on the Garden State Parkway at the hand of police. All right. And they're still investigating that case now. Well, they took it upon themselves to say, you know what, we need to make noise for that. And they planned a rally and a march tomorrow. And they got us. They say, hey, you're our city officials. You need to get involved with this. Did it all on their own, media and all that stuff. And now we have 200 plus, middle school, high school kids who's going to be marching just to disrupt our city to make noise in a respectful, correct way. Not breaking up stuff and so on and so forth. And, they say all the time, out the mouth of babes, right? So, there's a fine line, I think, that you can capture between the two without really destroying our communities,
Yeah, and I think also it just ran through my mind because I've seen, I think that sometimes when young black people get excited and united, a lot of people get nervous.
Yeah.
It's like they seeing a young tribe coming. You know what I mean? It's like it's that knee jerk that comes from white society. Like, oh, here it comes. Here comes the revolution we've been waiting for since the Emancipation Proclamation. They're coming for us. It's that. Like because our people, we're expressive. We whatever we're into, we're in, man.
And they should, right? And this is the other thing we need to know. We're influential in every other aspect of life. We wear clothes a certain way, they wearing it that way. We wear our hair a certain way, they wearing it that way. We get on the track and flow and play an instrument and music and so on and so forth. They're doing it too, right? We literally affect the culture of the world and what's happening, what's popping, what's shaking, like what's current, right? And so we have the ears and the eyes and that influence in that way. Why can't we do it for just causes like this? They should feel nervous. They should feel guilty. They should feel like, uncomfortable. And it should be awkward. It should because
right on, brother. Yeah, I think that's the thing is that the more we begin to come out from under the tropes and the negative stereotypes we've been sold from them to us about us, the more it forces them to question their own identity and their own space in all of this. And I think that's the thing that's making them uncomfortable, because once a people have decided they're going to move beyond your definition, you can't call it.
Yeah, I wish sometimes we knew our own power.
Well, that's what this show is about. Isn't it, Dan? It's about Black power. Said it was. You can't speak on that.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was waiting to listen to y'all. I didn't realize you called me in.
You the one preacher sleep in the pulpit.
Hey, I thought you was going to start singing James Brown. I was waiting on your James Brown impression.
I don't want nobody.
Dan busy showing off his tie. Who tied your tie? Didn't he tie your tie? Who tied it?
Oh no, I tied my tie, but I
told you he's got Negro adjacent tendencies. He can do some of the things.
I don't like that it's asymmetrical, but when you have it loose like this, it's supposed to be asymmetrical.
Sure.
But that was a shout out because Jesse gave me the tie, but now I need to represent the Maya shirt.
Okay, don't start ripping now.
Yeah, you got to play I don't have a guitar enough handy for the wah wah guitar. We kind of touched on it, but we never actually went to the topic. And on this show, we don't even necessarily have to cover the topic that we set out to cover, but a lot of people have been asking. So I definitely want to make sure that we do touch on explaining defunding the police and community-based policing and all of that. We talked about a bit with Sade, but your perspective is going to be similar but different, especially for people that are just joining us this week. Can you explain a little bit about what defunding the police actually means?
Yeah, because we're all lost. Help us, brother.
Yeah. I think that's on purpose too. That so defund the police is interesting, and from whatever perspective you're asking the question, or whoever you're asking the question to, you might get different answers. But essentially, defunding the police, right? So we hear defund, and that means taking money away, from the police entities, and I guess reallocating it to where we see it fit, which is definitely a model, except for it doesn't exactly work like that. So defunding the police essentially, and most times, and we have some examples here in Jersey, is actually a call to restructuring the police entity as we see it fit at that moment, usually because that structure is not working for us, okay? Or, it's not working the way we want it to. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. So in that restructuring, and what happens is, and that's what we are looking for, that you can take away all the bad apples, right? Because unfortunately, there's a lot of powers that may be that's at play, and like higher governments, state governments, county governments, most importantly, unions, the PBAs, and so on and so forth. Shout out to them. But they're very powerful, right? And there's usually agendas, and they're going to serve their agendas, right? And sometimes that kind of can tighten up the hold and how you need to maneuver. So the idea is, if you restructure that police agency, you're able to create the police agency that you want. One famous example that we have in Jersey is Camden, New Jersey, right outside of Philly. And what happened was that, they said crime was rampant, and they have several different, they have the Camden City Police, they have the Camden County Police, they also have a sheriff's department there as well, and then the state police. And so in that example, a lot of people will talk to that, and I guess they were effectively defunded, which meant they was able to restructure their police department. And that means all of the officers, including their chief, was essentially fired, right? And was to reapply for their job. And at that time, they were taken over by the county police in this new structure and this new mode of policing, which was to include community policing. That was their way around. If we're going to have real talk, that was their way they got around the union.
I see.
Okay. And so it can work when there's alignment in the vision that the community has and the powers that may be have with how you want to be policed moving forward. Yeah. The problem comes when there's not that alignment is not there. Understand that now the powers that may be is now going to structure the police the way they see it fit. And so whether that's your state, whether that's your county, if you're going to restructure, right, you're essentially putting the police entity in their hands to restructure it the way they see fit. You will hope that's aligned with what the people want, right? That may or may not be the case all the time. And so that's what you kind of have to be careful of with the defund the police model. I hope I explained that okay, that the people understand.
So is that the same thing as when people talk about community-based policing, or is that a different approach?
So no, it can all be aligned. And as it stands right now, you can call for your local police agency to use, and they should be using community-based police approaches. So examples of that, for example, is you'll see, and this is where your local city government come into play. Examples of that may come along where there might be ordinances or laws passed that, hey, we want a certain number of police officers or the whole police force to be, to live and reside in the city, for example. Well, that's a community-based policing tactic, right? Because if you live in that community, you are concerned, these are your neighbors you're policing, and so on and so forth. Here in East Orange, we're very excited about we formed, city council, and my city council colleagues, we formed made an ordinance, and we formed a community advisory board, community advisory board. But the key to that advisory board is that we have a certain number of our high school kids on that board, right? And so we include our senior citizens and our teens to bring that gap together of all entities involved. And they have a strong say in, you know, some of the things that happen with our Office of Public Safety, with our police department, in terms of, you know, they have say-so in choices, and they have say-so in terms of, you know, certain initiatives that's being pushed. And so that's important, you know. And so that's another community-based tactic. I know here also in these stars, not to, you know, keep on shouting out my town, but
you're from New York, man. You go to
You're the councilman. You might as well.
No, but we're you know, we have what we call our junior explorers, and so we give our youth an opportunity to work with both the police department and the fire department and actually graduate up, you know, to become policemen and firemen if they see fit. But those are some of the community-based policing that, and you can require that to happen within the entity you have now. But if, you know, in terms of, and going back to the advisory board and going back to other advisory boards, you should find out if you have one locally in your town. It's usually there is some type of form of civilian oversight board that's there, right? And so a lot of you is to do the research, but in that play, also your budget process, and you know, when we talk about defunding the police, that has brought city budgets into limelight, and a lot of people don't want to dive into that because it get pretty boring. But for you to see where the money's being spent, right, and that's when you have a voice. Right. And so if you take defund the police literally, well, you should probably share your voice on where the money is being allocated. And you should have every right to question your public safety director, your police chief, and say, why is this amount of money going to this? Right. And we reallocate it to this. You know, you have every right to do that because it's your money. You're paying taxes. Yeah. Right. And so those are some of the tactics.
So two things I want to ask you before we get into, because there's some really good questions over here on the side, and I want to definitely hope you can address some of those. But before we do that, there's two things I wanted to ask you. One is, so I looked up Minneapolis because that's obviously somewhere Michael and I both are connected to, and it's been in the news lately with George Floyd and everything. Only 8% of Minneapolis police officers live in Minneapolis. And then I looked up Milwaukee, which is, you know, where I work, and it's less than half. And I couldn't quickly find the percentage for Madison where I live, but I know I've seen it in news stories recently. It's also less than half. It seems to be very common in metropolitan areas that less than half of the police officers actually live in that city. Can you explain why that's such a bad thing?
Well, if you don't live there, then how much do you have invested in where you're doing that work? And that's the bottom line. It's easy for, let me not say it's easy, but if you know that young man who's walking down the street, right? If you know him personally, if you've seen him around, let's just go with that claim that, you know, we hear all the time, I feared for my life, you know, and so on and so forth. It was an aggressive move. If you know that kid and you've seen that kid several times, you're less likely, or you should be less likely, to fear for your life and to be able to build a rapport. And that's one of the differences that you see in towns that practice community policing, that there's this rapport between the officers and those who are working that town and the residents there, right? Sometimes it's as simple as, you know, hey, get the hell out the squad car and walk the beat or ride the bike, for example, right? And which is easy to do when you live in that town, right? Sure. For me, when I taught, right, I literally, and I was lucky and I was a little bit spoiled because of this, but I lived down the street from my school, right? And so oftentimes I'm walking to school and walking home with my students and with these kids. And a lot of times I would run out and I come home and I had kids, you know, kids waiting on my porch to talk to me and, hey, Awe, we want to play ball. Can you come play ball with us? Those type of experiences makes big differences in what actually makes a community, you know, and that's the bottom line, you know. And so unfortunately, when you have towns and you see such low residency percentages like you just talked about, Dan, I can't trust that those officers have an invested stake into that community and the wellness of that community. They're literally just leveraging the backs of the residents in that community just to get a check and go back home. And those are not the officers that I want working in my city. You know?
Is there any reason for the police union to be for that?
Say that again.
Is there any reason for, like, what are the? I mean, I guess you just pointed out one, which is they're getting paid. They don't have to get to know nobody. You know, they can pretty much, you know, wing it. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have to build a real relationship, and they get a check. Why is this accepted as why is it an accepted thing? I mean, I guess not necessarily by the police union, but by whoever says it's okay to live in Elk River but work in Minneapolis.
That's, you know, and I'm pointing at me, and I'm pointing at each other. That's the residents, that's the constituency, that's the voters, because one of the reasons why it's, you know, becoming an issue here, say for example in East Orange, is because enough residents said, hey, we want our police agency look like us. They need to look like us. And so you need to make that happen. And I'm putting you in office to make that happen. And if you can't make that happen, then I'll take you out of office and find somebody who can. Right? That's where it comes in, you know, and so that's where the powers that may be come into play. And that's why you got to make sure the powers that may be represent you as well. You know,
so I have the right to ask for that as a citizen. Thank you.
I think the one argument that I've heard in terms of like people justifying is, oh, we can't find enough qualified police officers, so we have to expand the hiring base, and we have to look in Apple Valley to hire police officers for North Minneapolis. And of course, a white police officer that lives in Apple Valley is not likely to see the residents of North Minneapolis as human the same way that somebody that lives in North Minneapolis.
He's going to be so scared of black, he ain't going to have nothing black in his house. No black chairs. No.
He don't even turn the lights off. The lights stay on.
Yeah, and then want to go down there with a bunch of black people, and yeah, no wonder he's shaking like Don Knotts playing Barney Fife. You know,
I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman, but I feel like there are definitely some people that sign up for law enforcement to reinforce their own biases. Like, in other words, like, I want to go and take care of those, you know, N-words in North Minneapolis. Like, maybe it's not as overt as I want to shoot and kill some, but I feel like there's people that do it for the wrong reasons. They want to sign up for authority over people that they already look down on.
Everything circles back to us, though, and let me say why. Any way you look at it, it circles back to us. You're absolutely right. There's bad apples in police where, like, there's bad apples everywhere. There is some suckers and some dweebs that, you know, was, you know, picked on in school and want to take it out on people when they get a gun, without a doubt. And, you know, God will deal with them. But how does it come back to us? Well, you know, we vote on the district attorneys and the prosecutors that, you know, are in office, that if when he does go wrong, he needs to get prosecuted. We vote on that, right? In terms of your question, in terms of like all of these excuses that's made, I do think it takes some foresight and leadership to address all that. So say, for example, one of the complaints is, I can't find a place to live, right, in that town. Well, that's why, you know, in my role with my colleagues, we're thinking about ahead of that. And so, you know, we have all these, you know, we unfortunately, we have these homes that are vacant. We have these, you know, dilapidated homes. Well, let's put our money and let's get some sponsors. Let's fix those homes up. Let's offer that to our officers. And guess what? Now you have a home to live in, right? And now you can be a part of this community. And so about, you know, there's forward thinking that needs to take place here. You know, I just mentioned our Explorers program that we have for our youth. Well, guess what? With that, we at least have several classes of young people who will eventually graduate and become the officers and the firemen and those public officials of our town that's from this town, right? And so programs like that help when you now grooming the next generation that in a year or 2 or 5 or 10, you will see the result and the benefit of that. And that's how you start to change the tide a little bit and you move the needle. You know, so I think it needs to happen on both ends. where we have some foresight in terms of how to change it in the future moving forward. We're thinking about our youth and investing in our youth and doing programs like that for our youth and taking care of those bad apples now and affecting change now with our vote, with the census, with, other things, protests, going to your city council meetings and making noise, asking about the budget, holding your city officials and your local citymen, councilmen, or ombudsman or whatever you have locally accountable. Those are things you could do now while affecting change for the future.
Put a pin in the census, because I definitely want to come back to that. One more question for you before I start putting some of these questions that other people have up. So earlier today I read, and I wish I could remember what state it was, that there was a state where the governor said that for any city that restructures the police or defunds the police, they will never be able to raise property taxes again. Did you catch that news story at all?
I did not. That's interesting.
Let me see if I can look it up where it is. But I mean, that when you talked about budgeting, it made me think of that. And I wanted to, whether or not you'd actually been familiar with that news story, I wanted you to see if you could talk a little bit about how, what basically what that governor is trying to do and how he's, what the point of that tactic is.
So every municipality goes through a budget process. That budget process is approved by the entity in the state, essentially the governor, who
it's
then
Texas. I just found it. It's the Texas governor.
I'm not surprised. So, when going through that process, every municipality will, submit a budget for state approval, essentially. And, so the state head, the governor, he will approve or reject whatever budget is sent towards him, and that would be his purview there. And I think that's what he's alluding to there. So if if that Texas governor is essentially saying, if you send me a budget for your local municipality and you have defunded the police, and I do see a tax increase, you're getting that budget back. You need to rework on it. And obviously, if your budget is not approved, you're not able to make moves for the coming fiscal year to do whatever you need to do for programming and so on and so forth. So that's where he's exercising his power.
Okay, let me throw some of these questions up here, because we had some very good questions about. So of course the first one comes from Jerry, who's been killing the comment section all night. I think she's got a few good ones in here.
Oh, is this our? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Oof. Okay.
Putting you right on the griddle.
Yeah. Welcome to Views of Politics.
Yeah.
Don't worry, because hey, when Jerry's episode comes up, you can be in the comments with some tough ones for her.
You're gonna get it too. Woo! I'm coming with some heat.
Yeah, you can roast it.
Jerry, what's the meaning of life? Jerry, where do babies come from? I'm going in when she comes on.
You going in?
Yeah. No, I'm not for the abolition of police. I think is there fundamental flaws? Definitely, there is fundamental flaws. I think we do have the powers to address those fundamental flaws, to be honest with you. As I was telling Michael earlier, and Dan, and I had this conversation. We don't understand. I think we don't really appreciate and understand the power that we do have, right? And if we were, it'd be one thing if we exercise that power to the fullest extent and said, up is not really working. Now we need to make a drastic change. Yeah, we have yet to fully exercise our power to make the changes that we need. You need police. I mean, you need police. We need law enforcement. We need those individuals. And, for the most part, the ones that I've worked with, and most of them are, across the board around, country are good for the majority, to be honest with you. Yes, but we need to be able to hold them accountable. And so when we look to these unfortunate cases that's been happening, you notice that, not only did we have those things happen, but they've had a track record essentially beforehand. So somewhere in that line, they weren't caught, So even from George Floyd and that one prick that, the prick that actually ended up killing him, he had a trial.
He had 18 counts on his record, like 18 different situations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, I think those are the flaws that, Jared, that actually are bigger, that when these things are happening, we're not catching them in time. And part of that is because we're not holding the people that we need to be holding accountable, and so from that's your local council people, that's your police chief, that's your director of public safety, that's your DA, that's your prosecutor, that's your attorney general. All of those are, essentially appointed by someone who's elected or is elected. So that's all our decisions, you know what I'm saying? Those are really our decision or extensions of our decisions.
I think yes, the central mantra of this show is we don't really know how much power we got. And that's why when we look at a situation like this, we feel helpless because we don't know. We're not aware that there's more we can do and there's more to be done. But I think we as a people, we can never expect white America to just roll over and say, okay, uncle, all right. We're guests. We're guests here. So whatever we get, we're going to have to fight for.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, Councilman, I don't mean that. I'm not trying to.
Michael's trying to get Christopher riled up.
Get me in trouble, right?
I see him grinning in a kind of way like, hey, listen, turn this camera off. I'll tell you.
Hey,
listen, bro.
I don't know. I don't know how many people from East Orange are watching. I don't know if you've seen any of your people in the comments yet. We can safely assume it's all Minneapolis and Wisconsin and California. So I want to take you off on a tangent from your answer to that question, though, because this is something that I've discussed with a lot of people, and why do we need police? Like I've often given people the example that the few times that I've called them, which has been when my house was broken into, my car was broken into, the only time that they've ever been helpful to me was when I was in a car accident. And then we need to clear the highway, get a tow truck there, etc. Otherwise, I have not found them to be useful. And I know a part of restructuring and reorganizing and defunding is getting away from the things that they do that don't seem to really be as helpful. But what's the argument for why we need them?
Well,
pray for us. I know. Say what you need to say, bro.
So, we could go all the way back to how police actually started with the slave catchers, and I saw your wheels going there. So
No, it's a great question, and I think that's part of the conversation, asking ourselves tough questions. I think you, like, for example, you said you got your house broken into. I'm assuming the first people you called was the police. Now, unfortunately, the police weren't that helpful to you, and that might be a testament of the police there. And I think there is something to be said about our police doing, getting themselves involved in things that they shouldn't. For example, I give you an example. My background initially is education, right? How do I feel about police in the school? Nah. You know what I'm saying? I don't, there shouldn't be a police officer disciplining my kid because, he got into an argument with, another classmate or so on and so forth. Should police be answering, and this is some of the things, this is the things we're grappling here in East Orange, for example. Unfortunately, we have a homeless population, right? And people are calling the police on the homeless guy. Well, maybe we shouldn't be calling the police. We should be calling social services who can get him what he need, and try to put him in the shelter for a night and get him the things he need. Or, I think those are the theories behind defunding the police, mental issues, right? If when someone is having a mental episode, should it be the police and the gun showing up, or should it be a doctor and a therapist showing up to, help that person and de-escalate the situation? So I think it's a valid question, right? In terms of, well, what exactly do we need the police for? And to go back to some of the questions in the comments, that's where we come in terms of saying we want our police officers in our town to be dealing with the XYZ. And we don't want our police officers dealing with ABC. And we have every right to say that. And defund the police may be an avenue and a model to make you think about how the police should be used and structuring the police so that they effectively can be used for that town. But
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Michael. Go ahead.
Whoever came up with that wording for this particular defund the police, it's so inaccurate. It's almost like they meant to put an anchor on it, like just want to see it sink. Like it's why it's not titled. It's cloaked. It's something. I don't know who came up with that term, but that ain't.
And you know what? And I'm glad you said this. That's a lot of the conversations I've been having, like off the record, right? You know what I mean? Because part of it is the education aspect of it and letting people know, exactly how it works. But it just, I think everything today, and we talked about this earlier, everything is the pendulum swing. You know what I mean? One way, this way. It's that whole thing, and it's definitely polarizing and more defunding. I mean, I'm saying defunding, more divisive than anything. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to us looking at the issue, finding what's the common ground. And the common ground is maybe police agencies are not working at the best of their capabilities. They're not being used effectively. They need retraining, which is big. Like there's definitely, and I could talk to that personally, like there's definitely agencies that definitely need retraining, right? And so on and so forth. And these are all common ground across the board in white or black towns. Let's attack that, as opposed to take all their money and, yeah.
And the other thing is, I really heard you, man, when you were talking about having police in your neighborhood or who are from where you from. I mean, the police could be more of an ally to these communities if they are a member. I'm just seeing like there's a lot of different ways that police could be used and to bridge the gap between the people and law enforcement, because everybody wants to feel safe.
Yeah. I think Diane is she's asking about like military gear and if defunding the police is an approach for that. Yeah, it is, but you can also do that now as it stands, right? With the police agency as you are, again, getting involved in the budget process and saying, hey, I see this budget line is appropriated for equipment. What equipment are you talking about? Why the heck do we need a tank? We don't need a tank. I don't want my tax money going to a tank, and we have a National Guard if we ever need a military presence. So my small town don't need military gear. As a citizen, you can say that as it stands right now, in with the entity, police entity that you have now. So
we need an adult civics class, man.
Well, again, that's kind of the point of the show for a little bit.
Okay. All right, Dan, I'll let you have that. Yeah, in a bit of a wave. Like it's like really all that you slept on in high school eventually comes back to affect your life later on.
Was I having this conversation with you or somebody else earlier this week when they were, I can't remember what the topic was, but then my response was, now I understand why they wanted us to study history, because everything that's happened
it's coming back around again
is very similar to something that happened dozens or hundreds or thousands of years ago. And we're making the same mistakes that we made then because people don't study history.
We're not learning.
What subjects did you teach when you were a teacher, Christopher?
I'm a geek. I was a middle school math teacher, so 6, 7, 8 math. Yeah.
Okay, so not history. My high school history teacher watches the show sometimes. We'll have to get her on sometime.
Oh, that'd be dope. Yeah, that'd be dope.
But go ahead, Michael.
I'm sorry, I had a question, and I don't mean to keep butting in front of all these illustrious comments and questions over here.
You're the host. That's your job.
Well, my job is to serve the people, is what it is.
Hold on, right? She was laughing at me. She was like, Councilman's wondering right now about these questions. Well, yeah.
I skipped over a couple more areas.
I'm like, what did I sign up for?
We got some great viewers here. We have the best audience of any show or podcast that you will find.
This environment to have this conversation, and that we know. So these people are going to become your fans, your supporters, man.
Absolutely. Too bad they don't vote in New Jersey.
We know these people. These are not just random people popping in.
That's cool.
I was going to say, what do you attribute? What do you really attribute that mass exodus, or did that even really happen? Like when the defund the police movement started up, and they were saying all these officers were retiring and going, oh well, we can't kill black people out in the open no more, so we just gonna call it. We're gonna throw the towel in. Was that really happening? Was there like a significant drop?
I think in some towns, yes. You know what I mean? Because and those are the towns that some of the viewers are talking about, where it's some fundamental screwed up from the top down, brass down, has some. Listen, I just was posting an article this a couple of days ago. I don't even know how to feel about that, but New York City's PBA is endorsing Trump, right? And I don't even know how to even address that, right? And now I know quite a few NYPD officers, what I'm saying, that I grew up with, our homeboys, or friends, so on and so forth. Do they feel like that? No, of course they don't feel like that. But this is the union that's protecting them, right? And so that's why a lot of times, when they talk about fundamental, like these fundamental issues that they have, is really from the top down and from the brass down. And so, again, same thing. We talk about NYPD, and we already know how checkered past they have. Well, there you go. You see why, So, to answer your question, that wasn't hoopla. And there is some places where, where is some real screwed up individuals, and the we talk about bad apples. As someone said earlier, it's like a poisonous tree, without a doubt. And that's why anyone who's in law enforcement should feel free to call out their brethren, and say, like, no, this is wrong. You know what I mean? And even make it a practice of accountability among each other.
But we've seen the consequences for the ones that do speak out. They're fired. There's that one woman somewhere in New York that spoke out against her partner who hurt or killed or somebody that still hasn't been able to get her job back years later. Like, and I mean, I hear what you're saying about that coming from the brass down, but it's almost understandable why police officers aren't willing to out other police officers, because when they do, there's consequences for everyone.
Is that what the thin blue line, is that what they call that?
Blue wall of silence and so on and so forth. Well, I think, shout out all my colleagues here in Jersey, but shout out to my assemblywoman, Brittany Timberlake, who, put up a bill that, anytime there's issues that it needs investigation of a police agency, that it's an outside entity that should be doing it. And I think we've seen bills like that that's being passed across the board throughout, the country and so on and so forth. And I think we need to, there's some best practices here that we need to look at other towns and apply here, right? And, because we know what the realities are. And so sometimes you're absolutely right. Because of that, they're not ready to talk up. All right, well, let's get somebody outside to look in and pick out those bad apples. And hopefully it sends enough of a message where people start to, I have this principle that used to tell me, shape up or ship out. It's really that simple,
Dan, why are you trying to?
I have ignored so many of her great comments. I had to put one back up. I'm trying not to lose track of the other questions because I didn't want to lose track of Patty's questions. But we'll cover some of this stuff on her episode.
Jerry is clear about her stance. I don't think she's here. She's not here. She has decided how she sees it. And we don't get when we have her on the show.
Let me tell you something.
The question.
Let me tell you something. Christopher is already one of my favorite guests, but I'm so excited for Jerry's episode just based on her comments tonight. Like she's coming ready to spit fire.
You don't want to save for firepower for her episode. She's trying to get it in now.
The way she's going about it is so poignant, because what happens is I'm gonna go to sleep tonight. And dream of Jerry. right? But that's what happens. Like it echoes in your brain, and that's the conscience that you need as you go and you have these meetings, and as we talk to people, and when it's time for us to make decisions. And I'm among my colleagues, and I'm gonna be like, Jerry said, as you should, because that's how it should echo in your consciousness, and so you can make the right decision. So yes,
absolutely. Black people, we are not a monolith. We think freely. We feel differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
let me put some of these other non-Jeria questions up, and then if there's time left, we'll get to some more of hers. So, I spoke to her before the show tonight. I did ask her to be vocal, and I'm grateful for her doing it. So,
woo!
I will shout out Sarif. Sarif, I see you on here. Comment. Sarif. She's from East Orange here. Sarif Lawson was a great friend of mine. I see her on here.
Sarif.
Yeah, I've been seeing her comments. I actually screenshotted one of them because I figured she was one of your people, and I wanted to go and seek her out after the show. Mm-hmm. So, Sarif, if you get a random friend request from a white dude from Wisconsin, that might be what happened.
Come on,
using all types of white men from Wisconsin friend requesting her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well. So, did we touch on Patty's question? I'm trying to find it now in all these comments. We got so many great comments tonight. This has been a really great comment section so far. No, that's not it. I just saw Patty's name. Here we go. Did we cover this question?
I think so. I think in all different ways. I mean, I don't have the magic bullet, and but I'm trying to learn and pick up, and that's why I say about best practices. A lot of the wheel doesn't have to be reinvented. So I'm looking to towns that are progressive and moving forward, and seeing if we can apply our stuff here, and vice versa. I think I think here in East Orange we're in a unique situation. And that is our town ran by us, and it's us that's actually making all the decisions. And so we can kind of see if it doesn't mean we don't have our issues, but we work through it, and we really do take on this family dynamic. And I think Lynn is talking to one of the approaches right now about recruiting and training in the neighborhoods. I spoke about that earlier in terms of going into the schools and picking out those young men and women who's interested in law enforcement and giving them a head start in that. And opportunity for obviously we talked about resident advisory boards and so on and so forth, where input is put into how they police. But yes, I think we talked about that and covered that a little bit.
Yeah. If you had the answer, you'd be too busy wherever else you would be to come on this show to even take questions. You'd be out there doing it. You'd be affecting change. Well, not that you're not now.
That's right.
By your very existence, you are affecting change, because that is what is moving through you. You are in line with your purpose.
I'm trying.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we all trying.
I'm just kind of scrolling through the rest of the questions. There's been so many great comments. If there's anybody's question who doesn't feel like it's been addressed, post it again so that I don't miss it. And I won't exclude Jerry. She can be her as well. I think Councilman Christopher handles the hot seat pretty well. So
yeah, he can stick and move. All right, bro. You have my you already had my respect just for coming on, but yeah, even more so, because our fan base they really want to know what's up.
I'm trying to think, because we only got a half an hour left per se, unless this is one of those rare weeks we go over what we didn't cover, because I want to make sure we don't miss anything important. There's so many. Oh, the census was one of that was in the back of my mind. This was I was actually going to look for a separate guest to talk about this, because this is such an important issue, and maybe I still will. But then I saw on something else that you'll presumably announce later that you're actually going to be speaking as an expert on this as well. Why is the census so important?
I really need this. You know why? Because
he ain't done yours yet.
I never answered the door for him. I have convinced myself that all these people want to know is how many people of color in the neighborhood, so they can go ahead with their little plans and deviant, agendas and whatnot. I tell me if I'm wrong, because the census seems like something I should be an enemy to. I called it. That's the one time I did call the cops. Was the woman came back to my house like 4 times, and what she did was she parked in my driveway the 4th time and went across the street to talk to my neighbors. And I could see her talking to them and pointing back at the house. And I called the cops. I said, "Hey, I got somebody parked in my driveway. I don't want them in here." And the cops came within like 2 minutes, and they made her get out of here.
Well,
you're not going to force me to do none of that. But please, if I'm wrong for being rebellious, I mean,
my white ass is going to tell you that you're wrong, but we'll see what Christopher says.
You're going to tell me I'm wrong? All right. Nothing a white man going to tell me about.
I mean, now, thanks a lot, Dan. You don't put me in a situation. You don't put me in a pickle now. Thank you, Dan.
God, hey, that's why I'm here.
Right. So are you wrong for being so rebellious? Yes. Are you wrong about the concept or why you're being so rebellious? No, because that's exactly what she wanted to know. I wanted to know how many African Americans is right in that house of yours, and that's what she was there for. So the census, the way I put it really quickly in one line is, you can't count on the government if you're not accounted for, right? And the bottom line is that a lot of the services that we need from, not even that we need, like not a lot, all of the services that we need, from what roads we drive on to, from the roads we drive on to, healthcare and all of those things. Okay, right now we got COVID and the response to COVID and so on and so forth, right? And we're talking about testing and so on and stuff. And everyone's looking in local municipalities for the monies to take care of that. And we're looking at DC, right? In terms of, you need to give us money to show up our budgets that we spent for all of this. Well, what happens with that is, okay, DC puts out a bulk sum of money and it's in a pot, and that pot is broken up to based off of what? Your population, how many people you have in your town, and so on and so forth. So the counts are very important, right? Of who and what lives there and so on and so forth.
I know that's what they say, but am I to believe it?
Well, okay, and that's a fair question. So they can't use the information against you in no way, shape, or form. So that's one, right? So anyone who's a census taker is confident, is to be, they swear, affidavit of confidentiality, which they could be prosecuted against if they, go against that. So that's one. So it can't be used against you, none of that information, nor can it be shared, the personal information, right? So you can trust in that. They need an account of everyone. So another question is, hey, can felons fill out the census and so on and so forth? Yes, they should, actually. And so you can trust. I guess trust is let me be careful with that word. It can't be used against you.
Reliable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So to that point, but it's definitely vital, especially as, for like us as public officials, as I go and advocate for my constituency group and whatever they need, I need to be able to back that up with numbers. Here goes more important. So this connects it all the way to the voting aspect. Well, we talked about McConnell a minute ago, right? And the piece of ish he is, right? But he's been there for so long. One of the
ways on the show, by the way. You can cuss as much as you want.
Well, damn. Now, okay. But no, he's a
see, why does the devil in you so much tonight?
Because McConnell's a real piece of shit. He's a real, that bastard is a real piece. Just where's the bleep button? Like, for real, anyway.
There is none.
You just got to tell me all these church people watch the program, and now you know.
No, and I put on my God is
church. But Jerry goes to my church, so that's the kind of church I go to.
God is dope. While I'm calling McConnell a piece of shit. Like, thanks a lot, Dan. God knows my heart, though. He knows my heart. He knows my heart.
Amen. Yes. God.
So he's been there how many years? Well, one of the ways he's been able to be there because they literally redistrict his area so he can stay in office. There was a point, I forgot how many years ago, where he had a close race, really, and he probably would have lost, and they redistrict his area so it could be more favorable for him. Well, that happened because of the census. Because of the numbers of the census, they were able to justify to remove his district lines that would favor him, and they do that all across the country. That's the census. That's what the census do. The census also, sets up how many representatives you have in terms of in DC, in terms of congressmen and senators. And we have, quite a few examples where, a certain district loses a seat, pick up several seats. That's because of the information that come out the census the next year. So, there's so many different rules, education, right? And our kids being funded and how much they're being funded based off the census.
Okay.
Right? Those of us that live in areas that's prone to natural disaster and is dependent on FEMA and so on and so forth, census figures, even all the way to, here's an interesting way that it impacted me just recently. So in the city of East Orange, we're having a lot of development, right? And our residents are calling for certain businesses and entities to come into our town. And, and we're trying to sell those businesses, right? And say, hey, you need to come to East Orange. We're up and coming. A lot of Black people, they're going to spend their money here with you, right? Well, you know what they look at? They look at the census. And they go, well, Councilman Awe, your median income in your town is actually this amount. The median income of our, prospective people are this amount. We don't know if it's a good fit, and so that happens a lot often too, and that's based off census as well. So there's so many different ways the census, impacts, our lives, and that's why it's important that, again, the way my catch line, just to sum it up again, is you can't count on the government if you're not accounted for it.
Well, and I'll hear it from you and I'll believe it, but a lot of people, it's taking this long for me. That if you tell me, then I'm gonna bet on it.
So here's my thing. Here's my way of explaining it, and not to take anything away from what he just said, but think of what would happen if they counted every white person in every rural community and in every suburb, and they didn't count any of the Blacks and Latinos in, metropolitan areas and in rural and suburban areas. What's gonna happen to representation? The other thing that I look at it is in terms of, like, when we think about how our how many states get X number of elected officials, and even with the Electoral Congress, which we can talk about in another episode, abolishing and why that should be a thing. But that's how they determine which each state gets however many electoral votes is based on the population, which is based on the census. So if you're not counted, you're not, like you said, you're not being represented. And then the thing that happens is, of course, they're trying consciously or subconsciously to not count undocumented immigrants and Blacks and Latinos and purple and people in urban and areas, and that those people end up underrepresented.
I'm not going to get into the further diabolical thinking that goes behind my decisions, because what you're saying is constructive. But I will just mention this, that I think somewhere in my head I went, if they think some white people live here, then maybe things will be different in this neighborhood, like for the better.
Well, it doesn't come off, because let me tell you why. Where the white people live, they're filling out the census. So it's not like, oh, they think white people live where you live because you didn't fill out the census. It's just that no one lives there. And think of it that way, because the white people are filling out their census, right? And they're claiming everything they can, and so what happens is it comes off as, well, no one lives there. And so why do we even need to worry about that? It's only this certain number, which is exactly how the lines become redistricted. That's where the gerrymandering happened.
Yeah, I got to get over my superstitious nature about just letting white people into my business like that. I don't trust on that level. Very few. I'm just being honest. But you've opened my eyes, Councilman, and that's why you're in the position you're in. For people like me who know what you know, but If I'm given the right information, I can change. I can adapt.
So Jeria and then Rashida basically said the same thing here. And so I'll put, I know Jerry is trying to get under your skin a little bit, but I like it, so I'll put hers back up there.
Hi, Jeria. How you doing?
Hi, Jeria. Bye, Jeria.
Okay. Am I fine to stop Jerry? Oh, without a doubt. Yes. Without a doubt. That's a simple answer to you, Jerry. Yes. Yes. Though we don't have much of a rural population here. But yes.
All right. I got a question. Oh, well, okay. After Smitty, go ahead.
Well, he wasn't really asking a question. I was just throwing it up there for, because getting back to who's represented in the census, and if you know X number of Black people live in a certain area, I got his point.
Rashida brought up a very good point. That's the point that I missed out on, right? Yes, if I don't know if we can highlight that too for us. When this connects it back to the beginning of our conversation about, tracing your families and so on and so forth. Yes, that information would be very key and helpful in that way to it. And that's one of the, that's one of the biggest pushes that I'm having, that I'm saying when I'm promoting the census as well. So I wanted to, highlight that as well.
You had a question, right, Michael?
Yeah, I was just going to say that whole thing about I don't answer questions. Like, what is that about for real? Can you discuss it? Can you tell me? Like, I'm like, there's no way that can be.
What do you mean? We don't answer questions. What do you mean?
Somebody told me a while back, and I've seen it online, that if a cop comes up to you, and you believe yourself to have not done anything wrong, or they don't have any reason to stop you, like they start asking you, what are you doing in this neighborhood? You can say, I don't answer questions, and they just leave. They just go back to their squad car and leave you alone. If we can't, then
is that a thing? So let me say this. So you have every right to not, it's the whole thing to everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. If you don't want to answer a question, at that point they should tell you what they're stopping you for, right? It's not a matter of, one, the officer shouldn't be asking you, what are you doing around here, right? Without presenting to, because here's the catch. If you say what I'm doing, what are you doing around here? Well, I'm here to buy some drugs. Like, well, now I have a reason to investigate you and your car. How many people are going to actually answer that way? Like, I'm here to do no good. So an officer actually asking, what are you doing around here is no. If you're stopping a person for a reason, you should be able to present the reason you're stopping them. Hello, first and foremost, and we push this with any of our officers, you're still, supposed to be pleasant. You're still you're still serving the community. You're a servant. I'm officer such and such. I have stopped you for this reason. May I have your credentials and whatever the case may be. It's as simple as that. And they're not starting with that, and I've done it when I'm stopped even too. Like, you're not talking to me like that. There's a way you should go about doing it, which is, hey, my name is, this is the reason, here's the credentials. And as a driver, I'm supposed to be providing them with the credentials, and they're supposed to do what they need to do. That's how it should be, period.
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry, Michael.
No. I was just saying, okay. He just enlightened me a little bit.
Tangent. Have you been stopped since you've been a councilman?
Oh yeah.
Sadly, I'm assuming you have. Does that affect how they treat you? You tell them, and does that affect how they treat you?
I try not to say that. I try not that. Well, I shouldn't be leading like that anyway. So if I'm stopped for reasons that I should be stopped for, then I go about it. If they find out, they find out. And that's on that. When there's times that I have been stopped and I don't know what I'm stopped for, well, you better make sure you're on your P's and Q's, because one, I'm recording this stop. Okay. So, like, I'm protecting myself, and yeah, please make sure on your P's and Q's. Luckily fortunately, unfortunately, I haven't had too many issues where, any improper stops has taken place. And we're all human, and so, You know, it's not an easy job. You know, let's be real. It's not an easy job, and it's hard for us to, you know, empathize and sympathize, and I get that. But there are, for majority, and I'm going to keep on stressing this, majority of officers are good people. And I hate to say it like that to sound familiar to other people, but that's the truth. And it's unfortunate that the bad apples really mess it up. And it's unfortunate that there's so many bad apples. There are a lot of bad apples. I'm not going to say that. But at the end of the day, you know, for me, I know I give respect to get respect. And so if you come into me without the respect, then no, I'm not going to give you the respect. And officers, you know, are to be respected, but they are to be respected because they treat you with respect, regardless of the situation of why you interacting with them.
Uh-huh.
So let me ask you another question, because you talked about recording the stops. So, and Nigeria, I see your comment. So what?
Leave it alone, Dan. You got Lucifer all in your screen tonight.
So
find him, Jesus, find that demon.
So understanding that people shouldn't have to act a certain way in order to be treated with respect by the police. But in the world that we live in, what are things that people can do, particularly people of color, when they are pulled over to ensure their safety? Like you said, one example is record the stop. What else, you know? Again, I'm making clear in the context of Jerry's comment, people shouldn't have to do these things, but in the current climate, a lot of us do.
So, I mean, the reality is this: a lot of things our not ancestors, but our grandparents and our great grandparents, a lot of things that they did involving the civil rights movement. If they knew we were going to be in the same situation we're in now in 2020 that they were in 1964, they would have done a myriad of things differently. You know, I just wanted to get that out.
I mean, and in some places even worse, Michael.
Yes.
Shout out to Kimberly. Kimberly said most are good. I need to see the receipt.
Oh, I missed that one. There we go.
Yeah, it's Kimberly. That's a fun.
You're getting hazed tonight, man.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of thought what Kimberly said when you said that, but you know, like I said, unless this is one of those episodes where we go way over, we only got 5 minutes left, and I didn't want to go down that rabbit hole.
I'm going by the person who's saying it to me, and I believe this brother is conscientious. He's educated. He's intelligent. He's respectful, and I accept what he's saying as sound counsel. Well, I don't think there's a reason to mislead us.
But I'll tell you this much, and for those who believe otherwise or have experience otherwise, I will work with you in any way, shape, or form I can to change that. You know,
if you're a cop, you're looking at one.
So, you know, with that be the case, you know, listen, I'm not taking away anyone's truth or lived experiences or their own realities, you know. And so if that's their lived realities, then we need to change that. That's the bottom line, because where my brother or sister suffers, I'm suffering. Right. You know what I mean? The pain that you guys are feeling wherever else, I'm feeling it too. And it should be the same. It should be the way, you know, vice versa. But to answer your question, Dan, you know, what things it can be done. One, so safety is always supposed to be paramount. So if you are being stopped and you're not sure, you yourself can call 911, right? And say, hey, I am being stopped. I don't know before what, but I don't feel safe. Can you stay on the line with me until I pull over? So that's one. So feel free to always do that. When you're pulling over, if you don't like where you're being stopped at, put your hazards on, get to a lit area at slow speed, right? So it's not a pursuit. Your hazards on, you're at slow speed. You want to get to a better lit area or an area where there's people around. Feel free to do that. And like I said, you can call 911, say I'm being stopped. I don't know what for, but I am concerned for my safety. Please stay on the line. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's 1 and 2, right? I know now these phones, I know the iPhone and I think the Android, they also got an app where they have a setting you could put on that when you get, like, you can tell Siri, I'm being stopped by the police, and Siri will instantly go put her camera on and send a GPS signal to to the authorities for your location. So that I've seen that option has been popular lately too, and there's apps that do the same thing. When you are being stopped, turn on all your interior lights, turn them all on, open all your windows, in particular if you have tents, right? So that now the officer cannot say, hey, I couldn't see in the vehicle. Lights are on, windows are open, and so there should be clear view to what's happening in the vehicle, so they can't use that as an excuse, right? Turn off your car, right? And they can see that. They can see the car is in park. They can see the car is off. Now, I don't want to get extra here, but I've known some people to get really extra, and maybe for good reason. And in particular parts of the country, you may need to get really extra, right? In terms of turning off the ignition and this is old school, putting the keys on the hood, on the roof, or putting the keys on the hood. So now there's no threat of you leaving, driving off on them, doing any of that. All right. And usually that's signal for any officer that this person knows what my concerns are and that I'm concerned for my safety. So when officers talk about their concern for their safety, those are some signals to show us that, okay, you're trying to show me that you're not a threat. I can pick up on that signal and see that and, line up a little bit, because at least at the minimum, you're not driving away. You're not driving off. I can see, I have a clear view of everything. I feel a little better. So those are a couple of tips that may be able, help people out. But the biggest one I want to say is that, hey, if you feel good, you feel concerned about your safety, get on the phone, call 911, tell them you're being stopped. I need you to stay on the line with me. When that officer approaches, you can tell them that too. Hey, because they're going to tell you to get off your phone. They're going to tell you to put your phone down. They're going to tell you to get off your phone. Have the phone on speaker. Say, I am on the line with 911. I was concerned with my safety. If you could identify yourself, officer, so that I know who you are and they can confirm.
So to the point that Jerry and some others were making, can we just kind of reconcile the fact, and some of those ideas I'd never heard before, and they're really helpful, but the fact that people feel a need to do that doesn't really mesh with the concept that most police officers are good people.
I understand what you're saying, Dan, it's weird because the burden is supposed to be on the person who is trained for the situation. You know what I mean? And I'm not trying to be contrary, Councilman. I'm just saying my view, like I look at the Philando Castile shooting, I'm like, there's an officer who was ill for the situation he was in. That's what I see. I don't necessarily know, but that's what I'm seeing as a guy who just kind of panicked, had a little freak out, and and I guess if there's so much that you have to do to imbue the officer with confidence to walk up on you without shooting you that day, I mean, where are these things really at? I mean, you understand what I'm saying?
No, you're absolutely right. I think we touched on that too. So
you are running a badge and back up.
officers are humans. They're humans, and I think we touched on that a little bit in terms of there could be a lot to be desired in training. In particular situations, we already talked about that. We're dealing with individuals who may be working in a region or in an area that's not native to them. It's not their homes. Who they're coming before are not familiar to them at all. And so at the end of the day, we're talking about saving our lives. Now, that doesn't take any accountability off the officers of being better trained and so on and so forth. And
I don't mean to put you in a redundant circle either.
No, that's fair. But and to that point, and because to be real with you, I don't think we're at the place to have real conversation because the emotions are so raw, right? But if you can, we talked about this earlier in the show, and even in the pre-show, we talked about just having perspective and them being different perspectives. And on this case, I don't think we're really in a position to see the other perspective. But the other perspective here, I'll name it here. The other perspective here is that an officer can approach a car, and that could be the last time they're also living too. And they're trained that way.
Mm-hmm.
They're trained. We're trained that way, and that you also need to be concerned for your safety, and that I can walk up to a car, and instead of getting your license and registration, I be getting a bullet hole. And there's cases of that as well, too.
Sure. I'm sure.
And so that's why, you got to find the common ground here is like everyone's trying to,
go
be
home
safe
at the end of the
at the end of the day.
When they walk. Yeah.
I have a response to that, but it makes me sound like an asshole.
Well, you are anyway.
That's true. My response to that is that's what they signed up for. Whereas civilians didn't sign up for the risk of getting shot by police. When you sign up to be a law enforcement officer, which should be a noble profession, you're,
yeah, but you are taking a license to drive. You are in the act of driving certain circumstances. That's why I don't. I mean, driver's license.
But there have been plenty of examples where people, usually black people, have been shot by the police when they weren't driving. I know, again, not to make everything about Jerria, but she commented about Tamir Rice a few comments ago, who was playing in a playground, So again, I understand that that's a very callous response from me.
No, it's not at all.
But I want to mention that it's part of the social contract.
Right.
But you got responsibilities that go along with your privileges.
You're absolutely right, and Jerry is right. Jerry is right, and you're right, Dan. And those are the people that should not be working, and so that's why I said this. Thing left to desire in terms of training, and there needs to be better screening. It needs to be mental screening. It needs to be emotional screening of officers before you give them a damn gun, and so on and so forth. And so they're absolutely right in that. Training definitely needs to be changed. There are agencies who are doing that. There are agencies that are putting, officers, in these stress test environments. And so this whole reactionary aspect of policing is no longer a thing, or at least the reaction is going to be the right reaction. Too many times is not the right reaction. So, I think all of that's coming. And because of what we're highlighting now, and
and I know how to. Camden is basically a success story, from what I can tell.
Right now, crime is being reduced. It's community policing, literally, that's taking place, and the people are happy. Right, the residents are happy, and so with that being said, that's the role. Right, that's what's supposed to happen. When now they were able to, re-enlist and re-energize that community and make their community confident in their capabilities now. And that's why everyone's looking to that model, but of course we have to be really educated on that model and know what comes with that. So
and we gotta and it's got to be what we want, what we desire, what we're after.
Right.
I'm sure it was not easy.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, and that's why it was a case study for everything, because things got real over there. They got real over there.
Yeah, I don't know why I have this sort of reaction to be so protective. I do know why, because you're in a position where you touch a lot of people, like you touch a lot of lives, man, and you've done something that I can say as a black man, I just would never want to be an officer. I mean, you've gone into a place that few of us have the heart to go, and with the idea in mind to be transformative, to make changes, So I guess I don't see that so often. So that's why I'm so protective of the fact that some of these people trying to lay you out as fresh meat. And I'm like, you've already proven to yourself what side you're on. You're on the side of right, and you're on the side of humanity. irrespective of whatever position you may hold in the community. You've already expressed your views. And I mean, if nobody else is saying, you solid to me. You got results. You practice what you preach. I mean, you're not the enemy, bro.
I don't think anybody in the comments sees him as the enemy. It does kind of touch on one of the questions I was going to ask you earlier, and we got sidetracked. Is I would love to know what prompted you to run for public office.
That was the way to make most impact, like immediate impact. I think, the same theory. You can't change the game unless you're in the game. And being at the table was well and good. But actually being put in the position, and I guess I think I've been super blessed to have the people around who just took and poured into me in terms of seeing potential that I haven't even seen within myself. And this heavy, to whom much is given, much is expected, right? So I'm coming from that type of background, and so not only just in the household but in my community as itself. And so these were people that kind of see me come up and see me go away, come back to school, and kind of molded all of that. And so I had no other choice but to serve once my opportunity came present. So that's why.
Yeah. Hey, Jerry, I'm not Jerry. I'm not putting you on Front Street.
Oh no, Jerry, right.
So here's my question.
And he has held his own in terms of being. He has not been in any way, shape, or form jealously defensive of the police department or anything like that. So I think, you just held him you criticized and held him accountable.
So I don't know. I told Mary I'd be dreaming about her tonight, and she still, what I'm saying. I said that earlier. Like, I'm going to go to bed thinking of Jerry.
Yeah, I feel like she feels like I'm talking directly at her, and I'm not figuring you out.
So here's my first. I don't want to say disagreement, but here's my first question for Jerry, and we can address this when she comes in the show in a few weeks. But with the comment I just put up, why should we hold Black elected officials to a higher standard than white elected officials? I
would delve to answer that only because I don't know about white people, but if I'm the only Black person in a room, I am the representative of an entire. I'm Black, then I'm the leader of Black people for that moment.
No, yeah.
Whatever I do will be applied and put forth on my people. Sorry.
I mean,
go ahead, Councilman. If you have if you may disagree.
Well, no. I mean, listen. My daddy and mommy to this day still, when I see them and leave them, they still tell me, remember the house that you came from, right? Because meaning when I go out there, I represent them and everyone that's come before them and so on and so forth. And I think, Jerry kind of touches on that as well in terms of, you should be held to a higher standard, because when people look at me and look at other Black officials, there's a certain consciousness, a certain level of excellence,
and
expectations and so on and so forth that comes with that. And, kind of like what we was talking about earlier with officers, that's exactly what I signed up for. You know what I'm saying? And I'll be arrogant and ignorant to not expect otherwise,
Mm-hmm. Dan, did you get your question answered?
I did. I was trying to remember. I had another question. So since half the show has ended up being about Jerry, I know I announced at the beginning that she is a Biden-Harris campaign staffer.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the ticket? Do you have any thoughts on the ticket that you're comfortable sharing?
You might want to share them when Jerry is on. In
the comments, that'll be.
Let me tell you something.
Well, I'll say this. Did I have thoughts? Yes, I did have thoughts. I'm not going to share those thoughts because it don't matter now. It doesn't matter now. So what's getting to me right now is there's a lot of, especially in these social media streets, right? There's a lot of back and forth and a lot of discontent with, for example, Kamala as a choice and so on and so forth, and what that's causing people to do and so on and so forth. And all of that's kind of null and void, right? Because the bottom line is this is where we're at now, and this is how we need to move forward. And that's where the focus should be. And if people are going to cry over spilled milk because, they're having a tantrum because, whoever they wanted wasn't picked, to me, that's just outrageous and bananas, and really, really like an egregious act of ignorance, like an inexcusable act of ignorance to sit there and have a hissy fit and say, I'm going to stay home because, that's crazy to me. And just as Jerry has been doing, we hold our people accountable, right? And so we need to hold them accountable. That's the bottom line. And this is, whatever the platform they're coming out on, hold them accountable to that platform. But, you can't hold our future hostage just because you pitching a bitch. Like, are you serious right now? So that's my take on it. And so I'm excited about what's to come. Jerry, here, us here in Jersey is willing to do everything and anything we need to do to, get them across that finish line. Just make sure y'all come see us here in East Orange and let us help you out. You know what I'm saying?
I think is your wife under an alias and whatnot.
That's hilarious because I was having a similar thought that what my wife was commenting last week is very similar to what Jerry is commenting this week. And I actually texted my wife and said, you've been strangely silent this episode. And she said that she just really likes and agrees with what Christopher's been saying. And
I think
so yeah,
the proof it is she puts a comment in here right now because I'm not Jiria.
Yeah, you hear that? You gotta, I don't know.
She don't care nothing about
it. But what was I gonna say? I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Say good night. It's 9:14, and
I know your dinner is ready, Michael. But so I was going to follow up and say, so it's pretty clear how you feel about not voting, and it's pretty clear how you feel about the current administration. I never want to presume that somebody is just a straight blue, whatever. I mean, do you have a thought? I got into a big discussion on Facebook earlier this week because I posted a meme about how voting for third parties is basically at the expense of disenfranchised people. And
yeah, that's a luxury some people think they can afford. And what they're really being is just, selfish. They're still having a tantrum. Well, I'll vote for nobody. Or I'll just put this ballot in for, right.
Right. Well, hey, Nia. What was the question? Yeah.
I was asking if you had a comment, because you referred to staying home from the polls as a tantrum, which I can't say I disagree with that characterization. And I'm pretty sure you're not encouraging anybody to vote for Trump. I just wanted to get your input on voting for any third party candidates. I believe I didn't even bother to look. I just assumed you are a Democrat as a city councilman, but I didn't actually look at your party affiliation.
It's a new day, Dan.
Yeah, you never know.
Monoliths. We don't all think the same.
I would just, and that's on a personal note. On a personal note, I would just implore anyone, I think, Mike spoke about it in terms of a luxury we just can't afford, you know what I'm saying? And I don't think anyone can afford to just throw out money that they actually need, you know what I'm saying? So, you want to put your money where it can work. Yeah. So that's a personal anecdote. That would be a personal plea on my part. I definitely encourage exercising your right in any way, shape, or form you need. But on a personal level, put it where it actually can work for you and matter and count. So.
Or work for somebody else.
Yeah, too. Right.
Don't be, the bad kind of selfish,
So last question for me for the night, and then if there's anything that we haven't covered that you want to cover, you're welcome to. Here's my last, and obviously Michael has any follow-up questions. I think he just wants to get to his dinner. What's the best pizza in Brooklyn?
Oh, in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn.
See, all right, you're gonna forgive me. I happen to like dollar slices. I have no problem with the dollar slices. And
you're not a pizza snob. You're not a pizza snob.
I'm not a pizza snob. I'm to be completely honest. I see. I see.
Last time I went to Brooklyn, I took a whole pie back on the plane from Gino's.
Are you serious?
Yeah, carried it in my lap.
But it's not good when you reheat it, though. That's the issue.
I mean, first of all, what'd you say, Michael?
Eat on the plane.
I did eat some of it on the plane, and I mean, obviously it's better when it's warm, and I feel like I can do a pretty decent job reheating it in the oven or the air fryer. But I'm okay with room temperature pizza if it's really good pizza.
Even when it's coming off a plane and was commuted from the airport to your house.
Yeah. So this is the thing I feel. See, Michael's shaking his head, but see, this comes from musician life. If you're at the gig and they stop serving food at a certain time, you have to put your order in before they stop serving food. But by the time you get a chance to eat, when you're done playing and packed up and everything, the food is room temperature anyways. I'm used to eating room temperature food.
I've eaten more buffalo wings and cold buffalo wings and pizza than I can even recount in my life. It don't mean I want to do that.
It's gigging musician life.
It's not savory. It's not even, you're not even being good to yourself.
See, so I did. So someone was in town 2 weeks, someone close to me was in town, and she wanted to try Juliana's, and she loved it. And that's, Juliana's is over there. Where is it? It's Dumbo. Over there in Dumbo. She loved that, but I'm good for like the dollar slice. I don't even need all the extra.
Let's keep moving.
Yeah, I don't need all the extra. Just give me a dollar slice and I'm good to go.
So I got one more thing I wanted to cover, Dan, because I had a revelation today. I was trying to get a nap in before we do our normal talk before the talk, and House was on. And it was that episode where I can't remember what was happening, but I heard it. I was asleep. And I heard Love and Happiness came on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow, I just realized in that moment how that song has been in every quadrant of my life. Love and Happiness echoes all the way back to my parents driving to Bogalusa, Louisiana in an Oldsmobile 98. But it had Al Green's greatest hits on 8-track. And Love and Happiness would come on. And everything would always that song is like the soundtrack of my life. Not only that, the first time Kim came over to my house, my wife, like back in 2005, I was playing Al Green. I said, "Oh, what's this music?" I said, "You don't know who Al Green is?" I said, "This is Al Green." And needless to say, she had been down to Bunkers and heard us playing it down there. And here's just a messed up story, but this is how her baby daddy found out we were seeing each other. Because I gave her the CD and she put it in the deck in her car, and he got in to borrow it. And Al Green came on. And he was, "Who told you about Al Green?" That's how he knew it was over. I mean, Love and Happiness has been.
That's funny,
isn't it?
I told you that was Todd. I don't know if you're still with us. I saw you in the comments earlier. That was the song where I learned that Todd could really play, because I'd been friends with Todd for a long time and heard him play, but not in the scenarios where I really got to hear what he could do. And we were doing a cover band together, and he had the real organ, and it was one of those cover bands, not unlike the Combo, where you just, whatever song comes to somebody is the song you do. Uh-huh. And I just opened up with that guitar riff and everybody fell in. And I looked over, I'm like, that organ sounds like the record. And that was when I learned he could really play, because he had that organ part just like the record. And I was like, okay.
That's awesome. Black Let It Be. Like, how do you not know Love and Happiness? That's just an American classic, and it never gets old, and the dance floor always fills up. Mm-hmm. It's a guaranteed win. Thank you, Al Green. Thank you, Tenny Hodges, for playing that guitar part.
That wasn't Steve Cropper. I don't know why in my mind I made that Steve Cropper. I guess that's it.
But yeah, I don't think that was Cropper.
Probably not, now that I think about it. But
sorry for the deviation, Councilman. We just
you good. You good. This is when I wish that I played it. Like, I got a good ear. I got a good ear. Like, I can hear things. You know what I mean? I never got around to actually playing. That's why I'm gonna teach myself guitar though. Word is wrong, because I think I want to be able to like get my, because when they ask you if you're in a band, everybody want to be the drummer, everybody want to be the lead singer. I want that guitar guy and that bass guy. He's just sitting back watching everything and just giving all the eyes and all. I want to be that guy. So
there's a guitar teacher right there.
Oh yeah.
Don't you teach guitar, Dan?
I do not. I am absolutely not a teacher. If I had time, I would probably give lessons, but people ask me all the time for guitar and organ lessons, and I just don't.
But all right, well,
no,
I can't.
You know who does? And her mom has been commenting on the podcast or the live stream. Isabel gives guitar lessons, and that's her mom. That's been in the comments. Elizabeth Rhodes.
Okay.
But there, my wife commenting.
Right. I just saw that when Nia said that. I'm like, oh yeah, because I was about to press you just now. I was about to press you, like, really, this is how you do me, brother? But Nia took care of that, so I'm good now. Yeah, no problem. But actually, I'm gonna tell Nia, you should force him to teach me, and because if he be mean, then I'll just tell, I'll tell on him to you, and you'll handle that. I'm sure you will.
Jesse Spriggs, like, oh yeah, Ryan Smith. Yeah, I don't know how many of our classics he knows yet. I'm gonna have to quiz.
Oh, Ryan hasn't been indoctrinated yet.
He's a wily one. He might know some of our music.
He plays like he's got some soul. I've never heard him play like soul music, but he plays like he's got some. He's
definitely a guitar teacher.
Ooh, Dan, I just got corrected. Ooh. I got corrected. It was Grimaldi's. It wasn't Giuliana's. It was Grimaldi's.
Grimaldi's makes a lot more sense.
And Al Jackson Jr. played on that whole. Yes, that was Al Jackson Jr. playing drums on all that. And I heard he was playing the Motown drum set, and they had broken the head on the snare. That's why it sounded like, because Gordy wouldn't let him change it. So the Al Green records with the snare drum just going.
Gotta keep a broken snare drum on stage to match that sound.
Yeah, that's because Barry Gordy said, if anybody touches this snare drum, you fire. But let me just say, Councilman, it's never too late to learn.
That's true.
Get into it, man, because it's a whole magical world all its own.
It keeps you sharp. I know people
even corny about it, because the reality is that, as we learned from Elder Gabriel last week, all this that's around us is tone and vibration. When you start playing music, you will recognize things in the natural, supernatural. Mm-hmm. You're making a sound, you're making a tone of vibration. It's really I'm encouraging you to do it.
Okay, next time I come back. I'm that's my report, you know what I mean, that I've started and I'm this far along. So, and I'm already, look at me. I'm putting myself back on the show. I said, next time I come back.
Uh-huh. We already want you back.
No, man, you've been a blessing to our show. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
And yes, we would be honored if you come back and bless.
Absolutely. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to make sure you cover, Councilman?
No, I'm just, everyone, census, I think the deadline for the census is September 30th.
Yep.
I think we cover that. Please get that filled out. Vote like your life depends on it, because your life actually does depend on it. And I'm just thankful. I'm thankful for the opportunity. I'm thankful for this necessary conversation. I'm looking forward to many more. To you guys, I speak, greatness to in your lives. Whatever you touch, let it be golden. Continue success, continue accomplishment, continue blessings, all that good stuff. And, we're going to make it, man. We're going to make it.
That's all right, man. I appreciate you for that. For that.
So let me just shout out as we're closing. First of all, you see I'm wearing my Be a Possibility shirt. And I got my Juneteenth shirt. So Maya Ray, we've seen her all over every single episode. She's one of the strongest supporters. There she is of this show, both in the public eye and behind the scenes. Maya is invaluable and a great friend to actually all three people on the screen. Please, if you like Michael and myself, and if you like Councilman Christopher, you need to support Maya because she is someone behind the scenes encouraging all of us. Be a Possibility. Get her merch. Tune into her lives on Monday night. They're not like ours. They're like 5 minutes. Ours are 5 hours. But please support her. She's doing huge things behind the scenes, and her social media presence should be much bigger given the things that she's doing. So please support her. Second of all,
Maya, yes,
I want to show y'all the Music Politics merch. If you haven't gotten yours, you got any hand close by, Michael? I know you have some, but is it within reach? Kim, get Michael the stuff. So I'm just going to show you real quick. I got the white shirt with the black logo. That's the same thing. I got a duplicate because I'm going to sweat that one out quick. White shirt with both logos. We got the masks. I'm trying to do this quickly because we're way over. Music Politics.
Get the logos bigger on the next run.
That's not big enough for you?
Well, no. Well, that's a billboard now.
You mean on the masks or on the shirts?
No, great.
2 logos. We're talking about the shirt with the 2 logos. Yeah, we gotta get that big.
Oh, I'll see.
Last time you see this.
Come on, Kim. So,
I look like I just came back from robbing the liquor store.
That's right. So, yeah, what'd you say about that, Officer Councilman?
I like
the profile.
First.
So, here for Nia, the chef, is a Music Politics apron.
Right.
We got, and what else? They come in all the colors. Somewhere around here is my shirt with me and Michael on it. I don't know where that one went, but we have that too. You can get the logo with Michael's and my picture. So the link is in the description of the video. Make sure you're liked and followed Music Politics on Facebook. Join the Music Politics Facebook group.
Whatever. It's not a matter of subscribing to the stereotypes. I know what I look like to them.
Councilman, do you have any links that people can follow you on social media?
Social media. Facebook, Christopher Awe, Instagram, Councilman Awegram, COUNCILMANAWE.
Maya, put it in the comments so I can put it on the screen because I just lost that quickly.
And then there's LinkedIn, there's all that stuff. But yeah, I'm all over.
So thank you so much. Go ahead, Michael. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just a little amen. Amen.
This has been a really great discussion. I hope you'll follow up on your word and actually come in the comments when Jeria has her episode and give her the same kind of hard time that she's giving you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So next week, next week we have an accounting professor who is going to talk about the economic significance of things like Blackout Day and what we can do for more than a day. Because as Michael has said, every single episode, except for this one, but he'll say it now, the bus boycott.
381 days it took for the Montgomery bus boycott. Our people need to understand and learn staying power. We have to be persistent in this time. Nobody's handing us nothing, and nobody should have to. We can obtain this. We can obtain these things in our lifetime. We can do it. I agree with I almost called him Reverend. Reverend Awe.
So Michael has said that every episode. So I went and sought out, actually, one of the members of the board at my church is an accounting professor, and she's an AKA as well. So we'll probably end up talking about Kamala a little bit. But she's very much pro protest and pro Black Lives Matter and all that. So she's going to come on. We're going to talk about, among many other things, I'm sure, ways that we can protest financially besides just taking a day.
Shout out to Divine Nine. Shout out to HBCUs. Senator Harris, Howard alum. Senator Harris, AKA. I went to University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, which is HBCU. I am a man of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. So that puts all that in Front Street too.
Oh yeah. So maybe you'll come by and stop by the comments next week as well. We'd love to see you whenever you're available. We love it when people come back and comment. Yeah. But definitely, then I believe September 1st, is when we'll have Jeria to talk about the Biden-Harris ticket, and then hopefully, I'm just kind of putting the thoughts together in my head. At some point in time,
Nia's giving me a head start. Thank you, Nia.
So, a way of proving that she is right. She is a separate entity. She's giving you ammunition. But it can't be the same person.
So I would love to, at some point closer to November, is it the 4th? What's the actual election day this year? 2nd? 3rd. It's November 3rd. So maybe sometime either right around election day, we can have Jeria and or councilman and or some other elected official back right before the election, or maybe both on the same show. I don't know. We'll have to do something special. I would ask them both to come on and be our election night guests, but I'm sure they'll both be busy on election night. But if they're not, I'm just putting that out in the atmosphere. I'd love to have some elected officials on the show election night so we can talk about the results in real time. So, if Jeria, councilman, if you're not too busy, pencil in November 3rd with us.
We're not going to hold you to it though, man. There's a whole lot of things can happen between that.
Yeah.
And who's to say this is where you want to be on that night?
I'm just putting it in the atmosphere as I thought of it. That's all.
Yeah. All
right. But we've kept you all long enough. Thank you so much, councilman. Thank you to everybody that commented. Thank you, Jeria, our extra guest today. As always, so much love to Michael, my co-host. Love you, Michael.
Love you back, man.
So unless anybody wants to say anything else, I'm ending the stream.
Oh, man.